Guys, I have a problem, and this is something that I tend to fail at. It's very hard for me. Help me, guys. I have an addiction. I really tried. Was it expensive? Yes, it was. Come on, let's be honest with ourselves. And did I go over budget? I did. Starting to get cold. I was just so caught up in the hype. I had to come to a very harsh reality. There's really not much to see here. I don't think it gets better than that. Hey guys, welcome back. I really missed the garden and I figured why not do a 2025 garden recap while being in the garden. And there's really not much to see here, but we're gonna hang out anyways outside, and it's not too bad. It's not too cold today, but as you can see, winter has completely taken over the garden. Let's go through what my goals were for 2025 and whether I hit the mark or I completely failed. If you're new here, hi guys, my name is Marsha and I'm the Black Thumb Gardener. I live in Ontario, Canada, USDA Zone 5B, and welcome to my garden. It is winter. If you're new here, I'd love for you to subscribe, and if you're returning, welcome back, and thank you so much for supporting my channel. Now let's get started. I'm going to start off by saying that this is a lot of fun and I should do this more often, but starting off with number one, setting up irrigation. Now, I spent a lot of time over the past few seasons, hours in the garden, especially in the summertime, watering everything in my garden. And honestly, guys, it's such a pain. I mean, it's fun in the spring when things are young and they're starting to grow and you want to take a look at what's happening. But when you're in the middle of the season and it's like 30 to 40 degrees Celsius outside, it is not fun having to water your garden. And I'm not a morning person, so it's really hard for me to wake up in the morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning before the sun hits, to water the entire garden. So that meant that I was watering my garden somewhere around 9 to 10 o'clock in the morning. And especially when I had to go to work in the morning, it was really tough, and I would end up watering my garden in the afternoon, and that meant a lot of my plants would suffer. I don't know if you have the same experiences, but it's such a pain. And it's so sad when your plants are doing really poorly during a heat wave because you just didn't have time to get up in the morning to water them. This year, I was determined to finally set up irrigation, and I'm so glad I did. Now, was it expensive? Yes, it was. I'm sure you can do this setup very cheap, but because this was my first time, I didn't know a lot of things, and I ended up having to go back to the hardware store multiple times. But when I finally got it done, it was such a lifesaver. I set my irrigation at 6 o'clock in the morning every single morning, and it was so great when I heard that little rustling of the water from upstairs in my bedroom, then I knew everything was working, and every day I would come out and check how things were doing, and the setup was fine. So I'm so happy that I set up the irrigation. Now, there are some things I missed out on with the irrigation setup, and one of the biggest challenges I had was trying to run the drip irrigation to my raised beds. Now, I had already built my raised beds for the season, and so having to put the irrigation over the raised beds was a big problem. If I had to do it all again, I would probably do the irrigation first, do all the infrastructure and setup, and then put them so that the irrigation pipes were running through it, not over it. I just think it's a bit messy. It doesn't really look good in the garden. And I'm worried about winter because these beds are completely covered with snow. And so I'm concerned that some of the irrigation pipes might freeze over during the winter. I've tried my best to prep for the season, but we'll never know what happens until the spring. But I am so happy. I ended up running several different types of irrigation systems. So in my main garden bed that's right behind me, I do have some drip tubing, and I think that's a 1/2-inch drip tubing that I've run throughout the entire bed. And then through my raised beds, I have some distribution tubing that I've put into a grid pattern inside my entire raised bed area. And then I've run tubing up into the raised beds. And then some of the raised beds have I think it's a 1/4 inch drip tubing. And then some of them are using some sprinklers, but I personally like the drip tubing better. So next year I'm going to experiment with changing out some of the sprinkler areas with drip tubing. I just think it's better and it's cleaner. It's going right to the base of the plant rather than sprinkling around, because sometimes it was hitting the leaves and things. So if I had to change it around, if I change it around again next year, I'll probably swap out the sprinklers for some drip tubing. Overall, I think I have a check mark for that one. I did the drip irrigation, I did it on my own, and it did an amazing job during the garden season, and especially in the summertime when it was really hot. Just sitting back and knowing that, hey, everything's taken care of and I can, go about my business and not have to worry about watering the garden was life-changing. There are some things I will change later on. Like, I think I didn't water enough and I noticed some of my plants suffering. So I think I do want to test out the water levels, and the only regret I have is not having a multi-line system. So I bought the Rainbird system, which only had one distribution pipe. And I wish I had more, because then I would be able to have tailored zones so that I can adjust the water needs to the specific plants I have in specific zones. That would be the only change I would do, but it's not something I'm going to worry about for the next couple of seasons. I think that's more of a long-term investment, but check marks for me on number 1. And if you're interested in seeing how I installed my drip irrigation system, or if you're interested in finding out how much I paid for my drip irrigation system, and I found that people weren't very transparent online with the cost of installing a full irrigation system. And I do include the entire cost of everything I used in my garden irrigation system. So if you're interested in seeing that video, I'll add that to the links below. Okay, guys, so number 2 is replacing my trellis arc. And I've had this trellis arc for probably about 3 years. I picked it up from Amazon. It was really cheap. At the time, I only had these 2 big raised beds, and then I had a few containers around the garden when I first got this trellis arc. And I needed more space to grow, and I thought having a trellis arc would allow me to grow vertically. And it was amazing because usually in the spring, I will grow sugar snap peas on the trellis arc, and then during the summer, I'll usually try to add beans. This year I had an indeterminate tomato called Posano that I wrapped around the trellis arc, and that did really well. And I think next year I'm going to repeat that. But this trellis arc, it didn't have a mesh, and I'll show you. Give me 1 second. Oh my gosh. Oh gosh, it feels so good to be outside. Anyways, so this, actually, let me move it a little bit more. Perfect, now you can see it. So this trellis arc did not come with a mesh in between. So every year what I was doing, I was wrapping rope around it all the way across. I was zigzagging the rope to the other side. And that's how I was able to kind of weave the plants through the mesh and have it connect to the other side. And one of the reasons I wanted to replace my trellis arc is so that I can get something that actually had some sort of mesh or netting in between that would allow me to grow the plants without having me to weave rope every single year. This year, I could not find the one I wanted. Now, I saw one I really liked from Gardenary. Unfortunately, she only ships in the US and I'm in Canada, so that's a little bit difficult. And I haven't really seen anything else I liked. So what I did this year, just to kind of make do, is I had this wire netting that I had from the hardware store. I just had it in storage, and I just decided to cut it down and then connect it with zip ties and run it all the way across. And honestly, it was probably better than what I would have purchased. It's exactly what I wanted. I don't know why I thought buying a trellis system was better. This was an amazing solution for me, and I don't think I need to buy a new trellis system. And the other thing is that it was free. This is going to be the first winter with this wire, so I'm going to see how it holds up through the winter season. And if it does well through to the spring, then it's a permanent structure. I don't think I'm going to change it. If I do see something I like, I might consider it, but honestly, right now, I think using what you have and being able to get exactly what you want, I don't think it gets better than that. I think I should still get marks for being innovative. I'm going to give myself a check mark. Number 3, start seeds for the space that you have, not the acre that you want. Guys, I have a problem, a major problem. I have an addiction to seeds and also starting seeds. And every year I start way too many seeds than I have space for. And as you can see, I have a very small garden. I really don't have a lot of space to put all of these seeds. And over the years, I just got so caught up in buying seeds, buying new varieties, buying new flowers and different varieties of broccoli and cauliflower and carrots and this and that. And I really didn't think about the space I had. I was just so caught up in the hype, and I really didn't consider where I was going to put all of these plants. Now, this year I was really committed to making sure that I started seeds for the space I had. I really tried to focus on making a garden plan, knowing what I was going to put into my spring garden, what I was going to put into my summer garden, and then what I was going to put into my fall garden. I think with having a very short season like I do in zone 5 is very difficult because you really only have maybe 4 months out of the year to garden, and the remaining months are covered in snow like this. So I really had to be strategic in terms of where I was going to put things, what I wanted most out of my garden, which is very difficult because you want everything out of your garden. You want to grow all the things. You want to save all the seeds. You want to start all the seeds. But I had to come to a very harsh reality that was just not possible. And while it really hurts my soul, it's just something that I had to deal with this season. Did I grow more than I had space for? Yes. I did. If I'm going to be honest with myself, I started more seeds than I had space for this year. I really tried. I really tried. I really tried with reducing the number of seeds I started this year. And I did reduce a significant number of seeds I started this year. I tried to focus on the things that I really wanted out of my garden. But did I end up growing more than I needed? Yes. Yes, I did. Like, guys, come on, let's be honest with ourselves. Like, it's very hard for me to stick to that plan. But I did give away a lot of my seedlings to friends, and that helped to reduce a lot of the waste that I had left over. And I really don't want to have a lot of waste in my garden. And one of the challenges I had this year with growing too much is that I had so many celery seedlings, and it's really hard for me to throw away plants. So I tried to tuck celery into my garden everywhere I possibly could. And while I did end up with an amazing harvest, and I'll link that video down below because my harvest for celery this year was just chef's kiss. But that prevented me from putting other things in that place. And I ended up starting my summer garden a little bit later than I wanted to, just because I really didn't have space in my spring garden. I had onions, I had garlic, I had a lot of my brassicas in the spring, and I had celery all over the place. And I think for next season, one of the changes I will make is like growing maybe 2 celery plants instead of like 10. So I don't know. What do I give myself on that? I don't know. I give myself like maybe an X because I really could do a better job. I feel like it's half marks, like maybe 0.5 of a check mark, because I did reduce a lot of the seeds I started, but I still ended up with extras that I put into the garden. And that prevented me from really adding other things that I could have added to the garden. So let me know in the comments. Do you think I deserve a check mark there? Or you think like, no, Marsha, like you did not get that at all. And let me know if you struggle with that issue too. I can't be the only one, guys. I can't be the only one. Number 3, preserve at least 50% of what I grow. And I think I got full check marks here because I did probably the most preserving I've ever done in my life. I have preserved tomatoes. I have onions and garlic that I preserved, turned into onion powder. I have minced garlic in the freezer from my season. I have broccoli and cauliflower that I blanched and put in the freezer. I had carrots in the refrigerator. I have probably the most herbs ever in any season in my cupboard right now. I just did a video a few days ago from the time I'm filming this, which was on homemade gifts that you can do from the herbs in your garden. So I think I have full check marks here. One of the reasons I was able to harvest at least 50% of my garden was because I had irrigation already installed. I didn't have to spend a lot of my time watering. I was able to come out into the garden and spend time harvesting, monitoring, dealing with disease pressure, trimming back plants. So I got a lot out of my garden this year than I expected. Did I get as much as I wanted? No. Could I have gotten more? Yes. I think my summer garden was a big flop, and I've talked about that before on this channel. One of the things I crave the most right now is some squash, some pumpkins, things like that. I got none of that from my garden. And did I start squash plants? Absolutely, I did. I started butternut squash, spaghetti squash. I started baby pumpkins in my garden, and I got none of that. None of that came up. And I think that was a big fail for me this year. So could I have gotten more out of my garden? Yes. Did I? No. But I did get a lot nonetheless, and I'm grateful for the harvest that I have. There was so much coming out of the garden, but especially tomatoes. Guys, I had 8 tomato plants in my garden this year, mainly determinate tomatoes, because I was determined to get as much pasta sauce as possible. And I will say I definitely achieved that goal. So check marks for me. I definitely preserved at least 50% of what I harvested. And I think next year I'm going to try and up that percentage to challenge myself. Whew. Number 5, save seeds. And I'm going to give myself a half check mark here because I don't think I save enough seeds as I should. And this is a problem every year. I do really well when it comes to flower saving seeds. So I saved a bunch of zinnia seeds, marigold seeds this year. But I really have a very tough time saving vegetable seeds. And the number one reason for that is because I just refuse to let my plants go to seed. That's it. That is it. I am so focused on harvesting what I grow in my garden. And again, like I said, I have a small garden. And while I could let one plant go to seed, the problem is I only have a couple plants of a specific variety. And so if I let one plant go to seed, that means I only get one harvest. And I feel like getting the harvest is more important than saving the seed. Now, I will save seeds as much as I can, but I really need to do a better job this year. Actually, I need to do a better job next year at letting more of my vegetables go to seed. Now, maybe I could let, a carrot go to seed, maybe one. I can let go of one carrot. But when it comes to some of my bigger vegetables like the celery, the broccoli, maybe the onions, it's really hard for me to let go. So I'm going to try. I said I'm going to try. I didn't say I was going to do it, but I'm going to try to be better and let more of my vegetables go to seed. If you guys have any tips and tricks on doing that, let me know in the comments. It's just, I don't know, guys. I just really struggle, and my garden is constantly moving. I'm constantly harvesting, constantly starting seeds, pulling things out, restarting things, and it's ever changing, and nothing really stays stagnant in this garden just because because of my short season, I have to keep moving things around, getting the most out of my garden. And that means I don't really have the opportunity to let things stay and go to seed. I'll see if I can do it next year. Maybe I'll do that as an experiment with my green stock next year, but I don't know, guys. It's just really hard for me to let vegetables go to seed. So, you know what? I'll put an X. That's an X. That's an X because I did not do well with that. And I know, if I'm being honest with myself, I know I didn't do well with that, and I should just let that go. Let it go. Let it go. I did not do well at that, and I could admit it. Okay, moving on. Guys, I'm going to say this again. If you do not have a collapsible stool in your garden, the thing is amazing. Anyways, number 6, winter sow your flowers and veggies. Actually, is that what it is? Is that number 6? I have my notes. Let me check. Number 6, winter sow cool flowers and veggies. I did not do so well at winter sowing. I know I did a whole winter sowing video, and I've been winter sowing for years, and I've had lots of success with winter sowing. But for some reason, this past season, only half of what I started from seed germinated, and I have no idea why. I don't know, maybe if I planted the seeds too deep, or I have no idea. So I'm going to give myself an X for this one again. I should have done my entire spring garden through winter sowing, and I didn't do that. And maybe this coming year I should do that. I'm personally like, I think winter sowing is great, and I think it's great if you don't have a setup indoors, but I have a huge indoor setup for seed starting, and I personally like to start my seeds indoors. I think it's fun, it's enjoyable, something I love to do. Will I start seeds through winter sowing next year? Yes. I usually try to start varieties that I really don't want to spend a lot of energy in growing indoors, and I'll usually put that as winter sowing outside, so that if it fails or if it, does well, it's like whatever. It did well, great. If it didn't, no loss. All of my important veggies and flowers, I tend to start indoors, and that includes a lot of my cool veggies and flowers. So am I going to push myself next year to winter sow? I'm kind of on the fence with that. Again, I have a lot of winter, so it's not like I can't do winter sowing. I have the perfect season to be able to do that. But I don't know. I kind of get 50-50 success on it, not 100%. And maybe there is something I'm doing wrong, but I'm going to try it again, and then we'll see the results next year. But I'm going to give myself an X for that one because I think I can do better. Woo! Number 7, spend more time relaxing in the garden and also having fun. I think this year was the first time I spent so much time just doing nothing in the garden, walking around, just looking at the plants, harvesting flowers and making bouquets for the deck, or just sitting on the deck enjoying the sun and reading. I love to read, if you didn't know, and I spend a ton of time on the deck reading. In the morning, I usually bring out a cup of coffee. I have these cozy chairs that I picked up a few years ago from Canadian Tire, and I just love sitting on the deck with a cup of coffee and reading. And this year, I added a fountain to the garden, and just listening to the water run and just hearing the birds around the garden, seeing the birds in the fountain, sitting with my cup of coffee. It's so peaceful. Even being in the garden in the evening and seeing the sunset, it's such an amazing experience. It's very peaceful. I'm so happy that I added a water element to my garden this year. I think adding a fountain or something water related just makes a huge difference to the sounds in your garden, but also it brings so many pollinators, so many birds, so many animals to the garden. It just helps the entire environment around your space, and I feel like it just adds beauty to the garden. The other thing that I did to my garden as well that allowed me to spend more time at night. I don't spend a lot of time in my garden at night because I didn't feel I had sufficient lighting in the garden. This year we added a lot of light to the raised beds that we built this year. And in addition to that, I added some lights along the pathway of my back garden beds. I think adding lighting in addition to the water elements just makes the garden sparkle at night. Like just seeing the raised beds with light around them and just the back garden lights and all the lights I have around the garden, it's such a magical experience at night. Even in the snow, the solar lights around the raised beds, it's so beautiful. You just see the snow on the raised beds and the light. It's just, guys, I cannot explain it. If you have not added solar lights to your raised beds, highly, highly, highly recommend. But with all of these changes that I've made, adding irrigation, adding water features, adding additional lighting, it just made the experience in my garden so much better. This was the first year I actually decided to host a tea party in my garden of one, right? But nonetheless, it was still an amazing experience. Even my mom came by. My mom is from Jamaica. She's there right now, dealing with issues with Melissa. But when she came to my garden this year, she walked around and she was just like, oh my gosh, Marcia, this is like amazing. And she's an OG gardener. She's the one who taught me everything. But just for her to come and have peace in the garden and look around and for her to smile and see everything that's growing and for her to get excited, that's what it's about. It's about peace of mind, spending time in your own space, loving on your own space, and having others come and also enjoy your space, and even just you enjoying your space yourselves, whether it's drinking a cup of coffee, walking around, checking out your plants, sitting on your deck, enjoying the sun. It's just an amazing experience, and I do not regret transforming this backyard space into a garden. I think it was the best thing I could have ever done for my own mental health. And I think also just the abundance that has come out of this garden and has fed my family and has reduced our grocery bill somewhat. Not a lot, honestly, not a lot, but just knowing that I'm eating something from my garden that I grew, I know what was in it, nothing, no chemicals, no, it's not, anything like that. It's so great knowing that I did that. I grew that from my garden. Having the time to spend enjoying the garden, looking at the garden, experiencing the garden, not really, spending time, watering the garden and being stressed in the sun, really having time and peace in the garden is probably the biggest thing I could have done for myself this year. So big check marks this year, because I definitely crushed that goal. 8 or 9, I can't even remember. Starting to get cold. I thought I had 10 goals. I guess not. Number 8, start new varieties, but not every variety. And this is something that I tend to fail at. I love to pick up new seeds and start new varieties, all the colors. It's really the colors that get me. Something about the seed packets, they always get me. I'm such a sucker for color on a seed packet. I don't know what it is. I do love trying new varieties. And I spent the last 5 years doing a lot of testing with new varieties to see what I liked. And it was great, but I have found over the years that, again, I have a small garden and I hate to harp on that, but it's true. I don't really have space to try out all the varieties that I would want. So this year I was really trying to be mindful with trying varieties that are tried and true, things that I love to eat, like the gypsy broccoli. I'll always talk about that because it's one of my favorite broccoli varieties, or the yaya carrots. Again, favorite varieties. Autumn King carrots, another favorite variety. The Walla Walla onions, or the Rosa d'Inverno onions. Rosa d'Inverno. I'll put it here. Those onions, chef's kiss, love them. So there are varieties that I will always and forever grow in my garden just because I just love them. They taste incredible. But I'm not really willing to risk too much variety in the garden when it comes to different varieties of the same plant, just because I don't have a lot of space and I don't want to grow something that may end up to turn a complete flop. So I've tried to limit myself to maybe a handful of varieties that I'll grow as test, but making sure that I have enough space to grow all the other things I love. So 2 varieties that come to mind this year that worked out really well and that will be added to the rotation next year. Number 1, red sun carrots. I started those carrots this season thinking, the color looks amazing. It looks amazing on the packet. West Coast Seed got me. They got me good. And I said, okay, I'm going to try these carrots to see how they work. And I absolutely loved it. My favorite carrot this year, even more so than the yaya carrots. I love the red sun carrots. The color was incredible. Now, I also did grow another variety called deep purple carrots, also by West Coast Seeds. Again, I was caught by the seed packet. I thought purple, it's going to be amazing. And the color was great, especially when you washed it and peeled it. The color inside, incredible. It looked great. It didn't taste great, I'm sorry to say. It just looked the part, but it didn't taste the part. Now, my husband loves the deep purple carrots. I don't know why. I think because the carrots are purple and he's like, ooh, purple carrots. But I did not like the taste. I ate all of those carrots and I did not like the taste. So I personally will not be growing deep purple carrots next year, but red sun for sure will be added to the rotation. So this year I decided to try red boar kale, and this is a beautiful red kale variety. It kind of reminds me of curly kale. Now, I love a dinosaur kale, so I was really taking a risk with this one, but honestly, no regrets. The only thing I would change is I would grow it in my fall garden instead of my spring garden. Now, I grew it in both seasons because I loved it that much, and it added a beautiful pop of color to a lot of the salads I made. My family loved it. I made a lot of salads with it, and it was incredible. The only thing I noticed though is when I grew the red boar kale in the fall slash winter, I noticed that the color deepened to this really, really bright red color. And it was so pretty in the fall that I think I won't grow it in the spring anymore. Maybe I might try out a different kale variety in the spring, and then in the fall go back to my red boar kale. So definitely adding that to the rotation for next year, and you win some and you lose some. The other thing I grew this year, which was brand new to me, were shallots. I grew, I think this Zebroon shallots from West Coast Seeds. I just want to try shallots. I never really use shallots in my cooking. I usually use red onion or a yellow onion variety. And I decided to just try something new. I grew shallots and leeks this year, actually. Number one, I won't grow leeks again next year. I don't really eat leeks. I still have leeks frozen in my freezer, and I know you can make leek soup, and that's probably what I will do with it, but I'm not really a leek eater, so I don't think I'll be growing that again in my garden. And with the shallots, I still have shallots in my storage bin where I keep my onions. And I don't think I will be growing them next year either. I don't really use shallots. And the few I've used, I've just done it because they were going bad. So again, I think that's another allium variety that I just won't be growing for next season. But other than that, I think everything else was the same as usual. Oh, and the only other thing is there was a flower variety that I tried this year. It was called Snow Puff White Cosmos. And I saw it because Becky from Acre Homestead, I think she grew that variety this season, and it looked absolutely gorgeous. So I tried it out in the fall garden. Spectacular. I will also be adding that to the rotation for next year. Ooh, guys, my feet are cold, and I think my nose is starting to turn red. I don't know if you see that. Oh my goodness. Okay. Number 9, don't buy any more seeds unless you're replacing what you already have. I'm going to laugh at myself for this one because I don't know why I put this as a goal. Did I hit that goal? I did not. Because who am I to tell myself that I can't buy any more seeds? Of course I'm buying more seeds. I definitely did. And when I went to the Seedy Saturday event downtown, I did do a seed exchange, so I did get more seeds that way. I think that was okay. But then I completely failed because then I went to the market there and they were selling a whole bunch of seeds, and then I bought more seeds. So, and that wasn't the only time, if I'm being honest. Every time I went to the garden center, I picked up something else. Every single time. So, complete and epic fail. And I don't even think I should add that to the list this year because I'm just about to go through my seed catalog and buy a whole bunch more seeds. So I don't even know why. I don't know why. I think I was trying to do it so that I didn't spend as much money on seeds, and I wanted to use what I had and not really spend money on new varieties. So I kind of curved it a bit with growing varieties that were tried and true to me and not really adding too much variety to the garden. But that didn't really prevent me from buying the seeds. I just didn't grow the seeds. You get what I mean? So I think I completely failed that. That's an X for me again. And yeah, I don't know why I made that a goal. Like, I didn't spend as much money as I usually did. I was very conscious of not spending too much money. And I think maybe I should spend more emphasis on my goal of saving the seeds from the vegetables I have, because if I do that, then it'll prevent me from buying more seeds. Really, am I going to do that? No. I'm just going to keep buying seeds. Help me, guys. I have an addiction. Anyways, I got to figure out what I'm going to do about that for next season because I just can't help myself. Let's be real. So while this wasn't a goal for 2025, there's something I do have to add to this list because I built 3 new raised beds this year, and that was not on my list. This cost a ton of money and it really dug into my garden budget for 2025. And I do create a budget for the season. You should too. But this really ate into my budget. This and the irrigation completely almost pretty much wiped out my budget for the year. And did I go over budget? I did. I did go over budget, but not by a lot. So one thing I will say is that adding these 3 new raised beds just exponentially increased the garden space that I had for this season. And it was one of the best things I ever did for my garden. And I keep saying that, but I feel like every year I'm improving on my garden, especially my raised bed garden. I built these 3 raised beds out of cedar, and I do have a video where I created those beds, and I'll add that in the link below. But honestly, guys, having these 3 new raised beds has just completely increased my gardening game, like increased the level of my gardening game because I've been able to grow so much this season and I feel like I have so much more room. I wouldn't have been able to add 8 tomato plants to my garden if I didn't have all this extra space. Now, when I didn't have these 3 raised beds, what I did was I used grow bags and which completely fine. But this space previous to this was just entire grass. And I thought the grass was kind of useless. My husband loves the grass. He loves cutting the grass and putting zigzags and all that stuff. But I thought that the grass was a waste of space, especially because there were so many weeds. I was always pulling weeds from my garden, and I don't use weed suppressant in my garden space or in my front yard at all, just because I'm worried about leakage into my plants. So I was having to hand pull those weeds all the time. And while it did look pretty when the grass was cut, it was perfectly done, I just thought that number one, I needed more space to grow more plants. And number two, the grass was just kind of a waste of space. Like we weren't doing anything on the grass. Our kids are older. Like it kind of didn't make sense. So putting the raised beds here and adding a barrier and creating a new dedicated raised bed space just made sense. And I'm so glad I did it. I think that's it. I think next year there are going to be no infrastructure changes to the garden. It's really going to be focused on saving seeds, starting seeds, harvesting, having a successful season. And I think all of my infrastructure things are done. Guys, it's so cold. So cold, so cold. Overall, guys, this 2025 season was just incredible. The amount of changes that happened to this garden. I'll show you a beginning aerial view and then a final aerial view. It was just incredible. The transformation of this garden, just adding more raised beds, adding irrigation, adding the water feature, adding more lights. It transformed this garden to a working machine. And I got so much out of this garden for 2025. All of this was hard work. This was not an easy transformation. This was time, energy, love, and money put into this garden space for 2025. And I am so grateful for the time that I've had in this garden. And I'm definitely looking forward to my 2026 garden season. So stay tuned because I'll be doing my seed starting series this month. And I cannot wait for you to join me on the journey of starting my garden all over again from seed for 2026. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to join the seed starting for 2026. Guys, thank you again so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.